Welcome back to Build Well, Women Shaping Health Technology. Today's episode is one we are so excited about. We're joined by someone who brings a powerful and often underrepresented perspective in health tech, and that is the intersection of clinical research, operations, and real-world patient experience. We're sitting down with Joyce Nortey, Senior Director of Clinical Research and Operations at Evidation Health, where she's leading work across decentralized trials, patient-generated health data, and real-world evidence to help transform how research is actually conducted. In this conversation, we dive into what it really takes to bridge the gap between product and clinical research and why that gap is often where things break down. Joyce really shares how regulation, patient safety, and data integrity shape what can and can't be built in healthcare. We also talk about why patient voices are still too often brought way too late in the game, what it means to design truly patient-centered experience, and how trust, accessibility, and representation need to be built into the products from day one. And throughout the episode, Joyce brings it back to one simple but very powerful idea. Building better healthcare starts with being a good human. So if you're building a health tech and want to understand how to create products that actually work in the real world, this episode is for you. So let's get into it.
Welcome back to the Build Well podcast. Today we're recording from Women's Audio Mission here in San Francisco, an incredible recording studio and nonprofit dedicated to advancing women and gender-expansive leaders in music, audio production, and creative technology. It's a space built intentionally to amplify voices and innovation, which makes it the perfect setting for conversations about shaping the future of healthcare technology. Today, we're joined by Joyce Nortey.
Yay!
Hi, Joyce! Hi. Senior Director of Clinical Research and Operations at Evidation. Joyce is amazing.
Truly amazing.
Amazing. She is a biotech and digital health leader with deep experience across clinical research and operations in areas ranging from psychiatric disorders and cardiology to pain and oncology. At Evidation, she leads innovations and initiatives that combine decentralized trials, patient-generated health data, and real-world evidence to advance how research is conducted and how therapies are developed. Her work helps bridge clinical research, technology, and real-world patient experience, enabling more inclusive and scalable approaches to evidence generation. She's very busy, but even beyond her leadership and research, Joyce is doing more. She's just even more.
Just a little bit.
Joyce is also deeply committed to patient advocacy and always has been, and community impact. She serves on boards supporting public health and academic institutions, including the University of San Francisco and the Bay Area Young Survivors, also known as BAYS. Joyce brings a powerful perspective on how technology, research, and patient experience must come together to create better health outcomes, and we're very excited to explore that with her today.
Yay! Thank you for being
here.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you.
So happy for you to be here.
Thank you.
Well, we're gonna jump into it with Joyce because we have an hour, and she has a lot of expertise, and we're hoping to get a lot of her good insight. So you are. Again, you're an executive in clinical research and operations, so we'd love to understand your perspective in how clinical research operations intersect with product development.
Absolutely. So how I really see it is they're really closely connected, but often siloed and seen as kind of just different departments. Research is this, product is building something, but they really do intersect. I think the way to look at clinical research is, we're trying to figure out the evidence. We're trying to bring the evidence of something to light. Product development, you're trying to build the tools to bring something else. And they kind of go together because sometimes we have products that you build for me to do my research. Sometimes the outcome of the product.
Study manager.
Oh yeah, you know, this lovely team of ladies used to build a lot of things for me.
Joyce is an Evidationer, just like we were.
Yes.
So we worked very closely together back in the day.
And so many times. They actually got me into learning about product and engineering and how to connect the team. So thank you, ladies, for that many years ago. I think, product development I see as like the tools, right, as I was just mentioning, and what really shapes the real world experience. So it's like use those products. I do the research, find the evidence that needs to be done, the products come out of it. And then that, in turn, we work together and science, we turn those into solutions, and then we can help health outcomes, can help participants, we can help build better trials, build everything.
And I think Joyce has always been a really big champion in, I think, taking operational implementation requirements and strategies and regulations, and either in turn, I think, deciphering that into a technology to help with decentralized research, or into the strategy to evaluate an effective digital tool. And I'd love to hear more how you kind of approach that, because it's hard. It's really hard as a product manager, and being in the health tech space, the compliance regulations and traditionally in-person tasks are always, I feel like, the most hard to essentially translate into digital solutions.
Absolutely. And I think it's always interesting. So one of the things is just bringing different groups of different people with expertise together, right? So I am an operations person at heart. I like process. I like things to work. I like to go from one thing to the next, right? However, you know, when you speak of regulation, our clinical research regulation, FDA regulations, no matter where you go in the world, they don't keep up with innovation and technology. It's a huge problem. It always has been. Not that old, but when I even started in kind of digital health, decentralized trials, the FDA didn't even have guidance on it yet. They didn't even have the guidance on diversity and clinical trials yet.
Who would? I mean, why?
Yeah, and so that's all really new. So we're working off regulations that, you know, were designed for a different research era. The products were designed for a different research era of when they even brought those in. And so knowing the regulations really, really important. I always talk about GCP, good clinical practice. We all need to follow it, but we have to have a big mindset of how are we innovating? What are we doing to make sure that, you know, we're following regulation, but building something that works right now, or that in the future. A lot of the products that are being built, like we haven't even thought of, you can't even fathom them in our minds, but they still need to fit. And so when you, again, think of regulation, I think of it more as keeping the most important things in mind related to like patient safety, research ethics. That's why they're there. So you can think outside of the box and still fit within that regulation, but then know that behind it, that's what the intention is. We just have to follow that and still be innovative and creative.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that patient intention, I think, feels very important in terms of translating it. And just in general. But going back to what you were saying in terms of like building teams and building, you're an operations person, I feel like you've always built really strong teams. How do you like go about trying to manage these teams, especially in very technological fields now, especially when a lot of, I think, clinical operations comes from like pencil and paper a lot of the time. And it's like people that need some digital literacy as a result of like being brought into a tech space.
Absolutely. And, you know, it was a learning for me as well. I came from very traditional pharma.
Love that.
We followed all the rules. We didn't really change how we were doing things. There were binders,
patient binders,
site binders. We went through at sites.
Physical TMS.
I was paper TMFs. Oh my goodness, don't get me started. Boxes and boxes and full rooms just dedicated to studies.
Oh my God. We're like not that old, but it's just like it's also still the reality of
in
research.
many places. It's still that way, and I'm lucky to work on Decentralized, as you said. It's just really interesting how we've kind of changed. I think when building a team, it's really important to like look at everything. Really, the first thing is intention for me. Like, what are you really looking for? Where is your heart coming from when you're building these things? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish? You know, you've mentioned all my patient stuff. Patient advocacy is always at the forefront. So looking for people who really have the best intentions in mind, whether you're a builder, product builder, whether you are a regulatory person, whether you're an engineer. I think really understanding that. And then I think diversity of thought is just always going to be the strongest skill and tool we have. So we all have our own lived experiences, and we bring that to the table no matter what we're doing, whether we like it or not. So having kind of a strong team just comes from having diversity of thought is really at the foundation of it. And then based on that, you can kind of use our skills, the things we've learned in school, things we've learned, working at all these different jobs over the years, the technical pieces, and really just educating each other and collaborating.
And like trusting each other too.
Trust.
And like being ready and like respectful to take that in and then build off of it. I feel like a lot of times people do get feedback and then, feel like clamp up and be like, that wasn't my idea. We can't do it. You've never had that. You've always, I loved working with you because you'd be like, we'd say this is a technological limitation. And then you'd actually be like, okay, well, like, let's look at the grand scope of things and then think about what we actually needed versus what we could work around or something like that.
Absolutely. And that's where I think it's just about openness. We have to leave our egos out of it. As I said, I'm not a tech person. I'm not a technology person. Engineers, product have taught me so much over the years. And I know the clinical piece, right? I know that trial piece. I know what we're trying to accomplish and why. And if we can do it, then I need somebody else to tell me the technical stuff. And then we can all put it together and come up with a nice, pretty package.
So again, being the subject matter expert of like clinical research and operations and a lot of patient advocacy components, where do you feel like product teams really misunderstand research realities?
I think it's really how fast tech can move or like product can move. You can put something together, test it, and reiterate. We cannot, if a steady protocol has been reviewed by an IRB, ethics committee, etc.,
There's no time for A/B testing.
There is no A/B testing unless you put that in the proto.
Right.
If you put it in a protocol, which you probably didn't, we never do, you can't do that. So really looking at things from the beginning, how are we designing it? Why are we designing it this way? Why does it take so long to iterate? Why am I saying, no, please build it this way this time? We don't have this amount of time to change it later. So I think that brings up a lot of frustration. And it's like, it's just MVP. We can just like ask a few people. No, we cannot ask them to do anything. The data behind it, the integrity behind the data. And even if it doesn't seem like it's fully related to patient safety, data integrity, validity, it probably actually is. And we actually have to evaluate it. And within GCP, good clinical practice, one of the things that you have to do is objectively demonstrate that you are following it. So you might want to change.
Show your work.
If it's not documented, it didn't happen, right? That's what our kind of motto is. So, you might want to change something quickly with some requirement. You have to show why you changed it, how it does not affect patient safety, the data won't change, etc. You might have to send it back to the IRB to get them to also confirm they agree.
IRB
it's not the worst.
The throwback.
The amendments. You remember those? There's so many. And I'm over here just saying, do we have to do that? Is that a technical change? Is that an implement? Necessarily to implement, but those are all kind of reasons that it just takes a long time. So we have to just be really careful and thoughtful. What I'll also add to that is that even though it does feel like it takes a long time, the intention behind it again is to alleviate some of the ethical concerns that have come up in research over time. We all know about Tuskegee. We know about many different things that have happened, unfortunately. And it's really building trust and making sure that there is an outside body looking at these things holistically. And when you bring kind of these two intersections of the research, the product, technology, innovation that traditionally have not gone together, there really does need to be outside eyes looking at it just to make sure we are doing things as we should.
100%. And I think like technology can be this tool to really elevate research practices. Again, human error, I think, gets reduced by tenfold, especially if you think about digital data collection. I mean, when I was doing research at an academic institution, we would take it on pens and paper and then retranscribe it and then enter it into a computer and then retranscribe it into the computer.
Somebody has to look at it and make sure you did all the steps. over.
Yeah. And so there's like a huge value add to that in terms of ease of implementation and reduction of errors and things like that. But there's also a challenge to make sure everything is accurate, especially in decentralized research, making sure that data is accurate. And, you know, you have to show don't tell that it is working.
Yes. So like validating the technology you're using before you even start, you know, is to do a lot of end-to-end testing to make sure things were actually memories.
That full, I think that gets overlooked in product development a lot. The full end-to-end scope, because you're releasing feature on feature and then you don't see it in the whole. That's where I see like a lot of pitfalls, especially when I'm developing too. You're just so focused on that isolated piece. I mean, that has like a whole connotation associated with it, because if the feature works but the patient experience is shit, it doesn't work.
And also vice versa. You might be like, oh, I designed this really so the whole patient experience is perfect. It goes through. Everybody can get what they want. They're getting this device sent here, etc. But on the back end, whatever you developed is not coming through. We're not seeing it. It's not collecting what we said we're going to collect in the way we said. It's not coming in. There's gaps in the data, etc. Again, end to end, one of my favorite things to do, from end to end, not just a piece. But I do think, you know, that comes into play in technology. And as you said, it really alleviates so much time later in the study when we find out things aren't working.
What are some of the strategies that you apply in trying to bring that message forward for product and engineering? Right?
You know, I think it's just using examples, and really it's an education piece. You know, a lot of engineers or product teams I've worked with or am working with have never worked on like kind of the scientific side, so they understand fundamentally what we're doing and why, or like what the study is, but like not really that level of, you know, the problems it can cause, how much more time it can add to the end. Again, the regulatory implications. You can get through a whole trial for like 3 years and then get to the FDA and they're like, oh, you didn't do this thing right. And so that hurts, right?
It's millions of dollars, sometimes billions.
I know. I remember when we applied study manager in a part 11 compliant manner, right? How painful that was, but doing that once and then realizing how you can scale that over time was pretty amazing, impressive, actually.
And it's sometimes it's just really that first time taking those pain points and going through the hard, long, not so fun times, but then that being able to apply that technology and scale it wide goes, you know, massive amounts of times. You know, I think I was working with all of you, it's been like 6-7 years ago. And the things we've been able to do with some of those things that were built and off the pain of like implementing
our pain, our late nights, okay?
You guys are amazing. And so many people are.
We were fishing for that.
You guys are amazing. So many people are benefiting from that. Some of the technologies and the things that have been able to be iterated off based on that. And I know you guys taken that knowledge to all the wonderful places you're working on and are expanding that as well. So I think it's that kind of just, again, knowledge sharing, education to various teams. Similarly, you know, I've taken all the things you taught me, you know, I can't even believe I speak in like engineer sometimes. I can't believe it. But, you know, I've learned that as well from you, the engineering teams, different people. And so, again, it's that educational exchange and understanding, leaving your ego at the door, the trust that we are all SMEs in our own right, and then putting it together, and then everybody will work those late nights to get what we need done.
Well, when you're mission driven, you for sure will.
Absolutely.
But some of the things that have been, I've taken, like one of the most impactful things was creating full user personas for all of the different individuals involved in traditional clinical research for the broader product and engineering teams, to be like, hey, let's take a beat. This is what a CRA does, or clinical research associate. This is a data monitor. These are their pain points, and this is what it takes to do this. And there felt like a very big aha moment. And you're like, sometimes you do need to take that beat, share that information, make it accessible to the broader team, which can be hard when you're moving fast.
Very fast.
But sometimes those are the things that you need to like take a step back and actually do.
Yeah, and taking those steps back, you know, it does feel like problem in the timeline. You know, leadership is always going to be like, we're supposed to like have this then. But I think realizing and acknowledging how much more time you save on the back end or developing a product that nobody's going to use, or participants never going to use or is going to use and stop. So again, it can technically work, but be not useful at all.
I think that
saves a lot of time.
Exactly. And I think that's so much of, especially with like product management in the growth space, right? Everyone's so focused on the onboarding experience and the front end of that funnel, but no one's really thinking about, wait, it doesn't matter that I have 500,000 people at the front end of the funnel if only 2 make it out the end, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's really interesting starting out product working in such a space of like research rigor. It's brought so much of my communication and thought process in product down the line because I'm so much more aware of like risk profiles, right? And which decisions I'm making intentionally, knowing there is risk here and making those trade-off analyses. So,
and I think that's a really great point is, you know, nothing's going to be perfect and it's acknowledging those risks. It's knowing they're there, acknowledging and making active decisions to whether to move on, to switch it, to reiterate, to adapt or not, right? Sometimes we just can't, or it's going to be a next feature in the next, you know, down later in the roadmap, etc. But I think, again, it's just really looking at that, taking a step, taking a moment, talking to everybody about it, and making sure everybody kind of gives their perspectives and then weighing it out and moving forward.
I think that's what you really, the only thing you can do is like have a shared understanding of the real world implications and decide like what are you willing to risk or not. And I think that's where Joyce, like your expertise really shines, is you're like, okay, we're stepping a little out of the box here, and like these are some of the consequences or the potential consequences that come with us. So I imagine it's a definite tension when you're working with people that are trying to move very quickly.
I wish I had more Joyces.
Thank
you.
You know?
I'm constantly at work and being like, where's Joyce?
That's so
sweet. Again, you were a really great partner, especially like being able to really think about that broad scope of what we're trying to accomplish and then lay it out for not just the participant or the patient experience, but then also that other layer of the data being collected, being a validated like clinical project or you know, product just in the end. So.
Yeah, and I think another thing is there's just so many new modalities to collect data, right? So even like my lovely rings and all these things I have.
Aura. She's an Aura girly.
I am an Aura girly. But really, that's a new way to collect data that we have not collected in like past studies when I was in pharma, oncology, all this stuff. And so we're passively collecting data from people at a per second level data.
That's incredible.
Millisecond.
It's amazing what you can do, but what does that mean? Like, how are we collecting that? What are the implications of that? How does that fit into the product? Are the tools we are building actually like, can they even keep up with that type of thing?
Interpret it, like,
And then when you get into things like data privacy
and trust,
right? What are we telling the participants of these studies? What are we even collecting that we don't know we're collecting yet? So there's a lot. There's a lot to think of, but I think laying it all out as much as you can, and again, involving your different groups, cross-collaboratory groups, you'll get there.
And I think a big thing in specifically decentralized research, but just in research in general, and I think this goes off of what you were saying, thinking about the continuous journey of somebody being able to use a product for a long period of time. Compliance is a huge thing. Compliance and understanding of what is happening at any given point, which really brings us to that patient or that participant experience, which we've talked ad nauseum about. And I think, again, Evidation, we came from very mission-driven company, and that was like a main focus and a main discussion point. Sometimes that becomes really challenging to implement when you're thinking about the systems that you're just going to collect data on. So why do you think the patient or the participant tends to get overlooked in product development?
At this point, it's not intentional. It's just a structural way we do things and how things have traditionally been built. We tend to involve the patient, participant, the individual later on in the cycle as a user. And yes, they may be a user, may not, depending on the product, but we're really involving them too late. Again, structural, not intentional. And I think if we just brought them in earlier, or we really ask people, I'm a real big advocate of patient voice.
PAGs, love a PAG.
Yes,
Advocacy group, get one.
Advisory council, whatever you need, just have them there. And in different ways. This can be a service, can be whatever. But again, I think it's just structurally how we've built teams, built companies. We just want to build. We want to move forward. And yeah, again, I don't think it's intentional. I just think there's a way to involve them earlier, to really understand, what do they actually want? Is this feature you think you're building for important? It might not be. I think you get very surprised.
Like, no, hear me out. This is cool.
Yeah, it might be very cool.
Solves 0 problems, but it's really cool.
And nobody can use it. You know? So I think that's part of it. It's just, we work off assumptions a lot, and we assume that this thing is needed and it needs to be done a certain way because this person may want it or may view it this way without even asking anybody, without having that lived experience. And again, going back to my favorite line, diversity of thought, that's why having several people in the room at once who all have their different lived experience might be able to tell you, like, actually, I don't think this is important. You know, user testing is always great. Even doing it yourself as somebody who's not, you know, living with the condition you might be working for, or whatever, but you might be like, I can't actually log in. This is really annoying.
Step 1.
Like, you know, it takes 5 clicks to just do this. I'm not doing it.
Login is hard.
That thing, that part, I don't really know my passwords anymore, right? So it's like, you're asking somebody to log in every single time. Like, why are we doing that? Just different things like that. So
my personal favorite is having to log into every single Epic portal to confirm my appointment.
Oh, God.
Yes. See, like, why? And then you just don't.
Then you don't. You really don't.
You just don't.
The barrier to entry is just so high. You're just like, is it that important? Nah.
I think that that's also a main thing, not just in building products, but also in study design as well. And like, I think so much so that researchers are like, I want to have it in this very specific way. I want this so much. And I think I've talked about this before. I was trying to be part of a study. You know, I like to participate in clinical research too, trying to give back to the community and stuff. No, I'm just kidding. And it was a study where you like, one of the things that they were testing, they wanted to take my temperature, and I said, oh, okay, like, that's fine. But they wanted to take it in my rectum, and I was like, you want to take, because it was a sauna based study, and I was like, so you're gonna take my temperature from my with a rectal thermometer? And they're like, yep. And I was like, what? They're like, and it's the whole time you're in the sauna. So I was like, wait, the whole time? I was like, what research? I know it's more accurate than taking a, but like, that's I was like, I'm not going to be in this study.
That sounds not fun.
So it's like a barrier to entry.
That's a huge barrier.
How much
and like,
was the
without
compensation?
thinking.
Not enough.
Not enough for that. And that's the really big thing to remember. You know, I also love to design studies to be patient-centric. And, you know, I might look at it, be like, oh yeah, rectum, temperature, most accurate. But who wants to do that? Like, I bet you if they even asked different people in the room, they might just be like, maybe not. Is there another way? Like, could we just put a Oura ring on you through the whole time and take it that way? But those are very important things that, again, your technology, whatever you're building, your study might work really well on paper, but getting to that, you might have 0 patients who actually participate, and then what good is that? Nobody's going to use your tool. You're not coming out with anything positive.
The most accurate data, but a data set with n equals 0.
Exactly. Nobody wants to participate.
0. What are your main strategies, you feel like, with bringing those voices in, or when people are coming up, and especially when developing study design or products and things like that, you hear that these voices aren't being represented? How do you go about tackling that and bringing those voices in?
It's not always easy, right? Because you can't just go have a big focus group, because again, there's regulation. You can't just go ask people. There's cost, there's timing. But I think really early, again, as early as possible, if you involve community, the community in different ways. So that can be actually going out to the community and asking people, bringing in other experts, KOLs, SMEs, and just be asking, really. I really try to look at my patient populations that I'm working with. Your target population, target product profile is what we call it often, is really important. So those personas of who's going to be in the trial and really understanding what they're going through. Is it a rural population? Will they have access to just Wi-Fi all the time? Can they use this device freely and enter data and do a daily survey or not?
It's the age, like demographic.
Demographic is huge. You know, not that seniors don't know technology, but the digital divide is huge right now, and it continues to get bigger and wider. So are we providing the right educational tools? Maybe I really do need to use this technology that's really complicated, but can I provide them an educational tutorial video? Can I offer them round-the-clock support? Like, what can I do to alleviate the barriers? Do they need to go in somewhere? Can I pay for their transportation? Can I make the visits flexible? Do I require them to wake up at 6 a.m. every day to take a survey, or can they just take it sometime?
The one-click survey.
One-click survey.
One-click survey.
Actually, I remember specifically Kelly did a survey asking people when they wanted to complete their surveys, like what time. And I think it was like, I think you just gave 3 options. It was like 7 a.m., noon, and like 7 p.m. or something. Easy. So just doing things like that to figure out what people actually want will get you a long way.
Awesome. And I think you're a great advocate of this, but also I think a systems and operations thinker, because in specifically decentralized research, you're usually bringing multiple components. You're bringing usually hardware and software together to get something done, and usually in complex scientific principles that you are now translating to like Joe Schmo me trying to be like, I don't like, do I need the rectal thermometer or not? And maybe it is really important to your therapeutic condition, because a lot of times clinical research, again, I think from a decentralized side, we might be focusing on digital tools, which don't have as much severity, but a lot of people go into clinical research specifically because it might be a last ditch effort in terms of actually treatment, saving a life or having some alleviation for pain. And you need to be able to think about how you share like your information and tell them what you're doing, why it's important, and like what to actually do with these 6 devices you're going to send them.
Absolutely. The educational piece, I think patient education is just so important and so overlooked. I think people just need to know. People are more willing to do what we need sometimes as well. Working in oncology, I saw that a lot. I worked in metastatic breast cancer with people who were terminally ill, given 2 to 3 months to live, and still willing to participate in these trials. We're going in doing biopsy upon biopsy, knowing they're in pain, but they're choosing to participate because they want to contribute to like the next thing, and they don't want other people to go through this. But them understanding why we need to do this, and also them being informed to make their own choice that they don't need to if they don't want to. But I think that goes a long way. And again, maybe your rectal thermometer was the only way, but they didn't explain it to you.
Yeah, they didn't tell me why.
They don't want to.
Love that.
Who knows? I'll go back to them.
Yeah, you should ask them.
Well, I'd love to understand where you're thinking, where the industry is lacking. You feel like in this participant or patient inclusion. Do you feel like, again, you said it wasn't intentional, and you want to bring these things definitely early on, but where do you think you feel like it's lacking in that initial ideation process, or just like throughout the life cycle?
Yeah, I think a thing I haven't mentioned yet is really the representation. and the accessibility. I think that's a big thing. We know that trials have traditionally been conducted on white males.
Love them. They're great.
They are, and just
like,
as important.
you know,
We also need them, but we need everybody.
Yes.
So representation, again, in the trial space, in the product space, whether it's using the technology for a tool for me to conduct the trial or for it to be like the outcome of the trial, we need just different people, ages, races, education levels, geographic locations, interest level is even a big thing that gets overlooked a lot. You know, some people are so eager to participate, but what about the person who's like, I'm never going to participate in a trial. I don't trust it. They may still need this. So how do we like access them? So just representation across the board. And then again, accessibility, we're really lacking in this digital world, in digital health, with getting people what they need, the type of devices, the type of education, you know, relying a lot on these tools that are, you know, so advanced, but can 80-year-old grandma access it and help? It might help save her life, but if she can't use it, you don't. So I think really looking at the information behind some of those and really kind of gathering data on how to do better. As a behavioral health person and public health person, I think really understanding the behaviors of why people don't want to do this, the trust behind it. It's like I can go on and on around all that, but really motivation, just understanding those barriers. I think that's where we lack. And then implementing what we learn from that to make things better going forward and implementing it across the board. You know, I think, you know, another thing is, I'm like, I'll keep going. But another thing is like, information isn't shared across the industry in a way it needs to be. You know, if I'm learning these things about what can make somebody's lives easier, I really should be sharing it across the board. You know, I know there's corporate stuff and shareholders and all that kind of stuff.
Shareholder value.
ROI and, you know, like we
Industry
just said,
secrets.
We're spending billions to get, you know, this IP somewhere, but somewhere, I don't know, to market, I guess. But we really need to share kind of our learning. So, you know, kudos to all of you for bringing this podcast to life again.
We're fishing for some compliments. So
well, you guys are amazing. But yeah, I think the industry secrets are really a shame. And I think that adds to why things are lacking. It's just not shared, and we need to do better about that.
I mean, that's some of the stuff that we were talking about, like in terms of research results not getting published when they fail. And I think failure is so important. Like, don't do that again.
Just as important. And what does it mean if, you know, you spent 15 years on a drug trial and then found out it's not safe when it gets to like the broader population, and then the next company goes and does the same thing. Like you're just wasting another billion. Actually, I think it's 2.6 billion was the last thing I heard, last figure I heard. So like, why not share that? On the other end of that, going back to patients, you know, in Europe, they mandate lay summaries for any participant who participated in a drug trial.
What's a lay summary?
It's basically a summary of what happened, the results of the trial, but in a way that is understandable. It has to be like health literate.
To the individual.
I love that.
Who knew that that would be a thing that could be
mandatory by the EU. So it's like just things like that. You know, there's organizations here who do that. I used to like help edit them and make them like as literate as possible, but people don't want to share that because it's a secret. But it's like the participants should know what's happening. The workers should know what happened. People who worked on it, the product, everybody. I think it just would go a long way on the next thing you develop and making it better.
Yeah, you need to have foundational expertise and understanding of what works and what doesn't in order to build off of it, just like you need to have foundational understanding of compliance and regulations, operational practices that are mandated versus nice to have. Like all of these are leading to better and brighter solutions that actually move faster.
Exactly. In the long run, you're just going to move faster if we're all informed. And, you know, if we can X out looking at this these 5 things, because we already know it's not going to work. We know it's not a good idea. We've tried it. We've tested it. Like, just move on, and then it just moves everything faster, more productive.
Yeah, as a society, we can advance faster.
We could.
We have secrets. We love our secrets.
We are all secretive.
Well, going back to the patient experience, because I do think having diversity within that, and one, I still get a little frustrated and I work a lot in clinical trials right now, especially with global regulations. There are mandates about not collecting that information, and then you are kind of blind in terms of like who you are actually supporting. And so trying to showcase that value is always like a little challenging. But how do you feel like digital health companies can improve immediately?
I think it's just implement what you know. It's not like the most like extreme answer, but it's really like right now, look at what you're doing. Like, involve people, bring different types of people to the table when you're developing anything, and at all stages. It's not just the end when you need somebody to use your tool or do your tool. It's not at the beginning when you're designing. It's throughout all phases. Look at things, reiterate, test, throw it out, restart as needed, but throughout the whole stage, the whole, end to end, the whole process. And I think that will go a long way. I think it's just really letting a lot of people have input, and then evaluating what you're doing right then and there.
I think that's a really important concept. And then to build off of that from a product manager perspective, again, removing that ego and being like, we tried this, it didn't work. Like, we need to pivot from this particular strategy or feature requirements. And I have a hard time with this immensely, because after you spent like 3 months building something and you showcase it and people are like, that's trash, you're like, heard. And then being able to pivot constructively and be like, okay, well, this is garbage. What do we do to now pivot? How can I pivot quickly to kind of fit that need? And
I think it's really just keeping in mind, like, again, the main principles. Why are we doing this? And for me, it's always like, well, somebody's going to benefit. The patients are going to benefit. There's a reason, right, behind it. Again, I'm very mission driven, so that's really important. But then it's also like the ethics, we're not trying to do something that's bad and that might harm somebody just because we had a good idea that we thought would work, but maybe it's harmful. Maybe it's not. Maybe maybe it's just trash and it didn't work. But it's like just kind of remembering kind of main principles, patient safety, usability. We want something that's going to be lasting. We want something that can translate. Like in health tech, we want it to translate to a health outcome. So just looking at that and being like, okay.
I absolutely love, you are so patient, like with all of us forever, and like I'm sure all of your teams, because it is like a challenging thing. I think people sometimes don't hear what really needs to happen and then build something, and I'm sure you probably see like, oh wow, you did not listen.
Yes. And then I'm kind of like, so how did we get here? And, I get frustrated too. And we're all, there's like frustration. My ideas are not always heard. And, I'm like, patient, rah, rah, rah. And that's like not the outcome. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking to move, from step A to B in 6 weeks. Like, it doesn't matter. So it's like, what are we doing? It doesn't matter. So, I think, again, it's just taking a step back, taking a beat, being like, okay, what are we here for? Evaluating the risk, and then go from there.
Well, what is your North Star? Because you are very mission driven, and I feel like at Evidation, all of us were like very mission driven, but everybody has like their own component that drives them. Like, what are you trying to contribute, and like, what do you feel like your personal mission is?
Yeah, that's wow, that's such a deep question.
Because I'm ready for this. I was going to ask it at the brewery later, but I feel like
right now here, huh?
Yeah.
For me, really, it is about humans and just being a good human. I used to have a boss. Shout out to Eileen. She told me, don't think of it as good clinical practice. Think of it as good human practice. So I'm just trying to be a good human, really. And I think if we all in the world just wanted to be good humans to each other. For me, that translates into helping in health related items, whether that's mental health, behavioral health, like kind of everything, which is one of the reasons I really love Evidation. I'm not like focused on one condition. It's kind of across the board. But if I can just help people, help humans do better, learn from them, like what they're doing, that's really all I'm really trying to achieve. And then helping with the trust aspect, I think, is another piece because, you know, in my community, I'm Ghanaian. People are always asking me like why they're just trying to steal our information. They've done this. And so really
let me educate you.
Not have a good track record.
We're trying to do better. And so really there's a lot of also treatments out there that are only in clinical trials and you cannot get them unless you're there. And, you know, even with access to healthcare, etc. Sometimes it's the only way. And so I think if we do things better and more people are comfortable and can make these informed decisions, it really will get us to a better place health-wise. I think, you know, again, the innovation behind it, everything doesn't have to be so hard. There's so many, the brightest minds are building things right now that in 50 years, we won't even believe that like the things we were dealing with right now were a problem. You know, so it's really just getting us there. That's really what I think of is just, let me be a good human. I really like health. I really like helping people. Let me help in this way and get people there.
She really she's very
They're
inspiring.
so sweet.
You come in with so much respect and like a really patient focus to build out that trust, but you're always growing and like and you're a very curious person. I think it just makes a phenomenal leader. So
thank you.
I'm going to do a little pivot into product strategy. How do you feel like you're influencing specifically from like an executive position as in clinical operations, product strategy? How do you like to work with product and build this out? And what does this usually look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's really, again, about seeing the big picture. What's the intention? What are we trying to see? And then kind of like, I like to whiteboard and, you know, in this...
She is a product person.
Yeah.
She's a product person. She likes to whiteboard.
I do. Believe it or not, in early clinical days, we used to have big whiteboards with Post-its and like we'd evaluate things. We do it on like digitally now because I work remote, but
I like love a digital whiteboard, but there's nothing.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
Being
but
in a room and
just
slapping it on
cross these things off. But I think really looking at the big picture, looking what's important to each group and understanding those pieces. And so I just need to look at product as you are my SME. You can tell me, can I do this? This is what I want to do. Can I do it or not? No? Okay, how can I do it? I think holistically being solutions oriented has always been my kind of favorite way to work with people is so like what solutions can we create to get there? What is, you know, what are the limitations and how do we work around them? I think that's having like that big picture mentality of we want like the moon, the stars, all the planets, the universe, which are the pieces that you can actually give me. And then let's work on it together. And like, these are the things that are important to me. This is what's important to the regulators. This is what they're going to say, absolutely no, you cannot do. And then even from a bigger picture, it's like, I've brought product and engineering into meetings with the IRB. Just so they could hear.
I bet that's
just
really
so they could hear. And they were just like, oh, e-consent can't go that way. I'm like, yeah, because I need somebody to be able to read the whole consent on like one, well, not the whole consent, or like this whole portion on one page. And they said no because they can't see it. You're scrolling for 10 hours, you know? And so even just having people like that come to meetings with me and understand the big picture, that's how I really like to work, like hands-on when possible, just so they understand I'm not just making things up.
Show don't tell,
yeah, and like we can all come up with something
100%.
together.
Yeah, that's a really great and impactful strategy. I like that.
It's
Literally
worked.
bringing them into the room.
Literally, literally.
I remember my first audit, I was like, oh, this is what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, no.
Yeah, it's nothing like a auditor or an inspector asking you like directly, like you wrote this here and you signed off.
Yep.
Why?
Yep.
Like 3 years ago. And being like, well,
I don't even
That's
remember
why.
what I did 2 weeks ago.
exactly.
Oh, I got so nervous. I said way too much. I remember being told at the end, they were like, you can say less.
You can literally say nothing. Well, like 3 words. Less is better in that case.
The blanket
It's
thing.
like, but I'm honest.
And I was like, this is how we got to that decision. Like,
Well, can I ask you all a question? How do you like to work with, I guess, clinical researchers like me or just other teams? How does product like to do that?
I mean, so early in the process because otherwise you're building, like I said, trash and you come to them later with trash. So, but like I come from a research background, so it feels very easy to fall into that place. But what I find is I really have to focus on my own biases and thinking I'm right because I, I have worked in research before. So it's like, I'm right. But like a lot of things change so fast, processes change so fast. And so it's really just having those early conversations. And I think we were just talking to our other guest, being able to put early designs in front before we invest in actually building something to be like, this is what you said, right? Like, this is it? Question mark. But also having the time and the space to do that, moving it so fast. I feel like that's when, that's when it really is, I think, hard to iterate off of the initial concepts.
I think that's the cool thing now, though, with AI tooling is that you don't need to always be in a conversation in order to share your vision or your thought process, right? You can send something off and have an individual interact with it, right? So with my medical affairs counterpart and clinical research counterpart at my current company, I'll send them prototypes to play around and to give me active feedback. And sometimes it even opens up areas or solutions they didn't even think of originally,
Absolutely.
right?
I love a prototype.
Yeah, it's so
Anytime
interactive.
I can play with anything, that is definitely that is definitely an answer of how can we do this right now?
Prototype.
Send me prototypes, let me play with it, let me and my team play with it, and then sometimes I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that this is what I was trying to do. But like, this is a great solution. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I really like collaborating and leaning on clinical and clinical research to tell me like why users might not use something, right? Like maybe you're all aligned on the problem to solve and you're like, okay, this is how we're proposing. You create the prototype and you're like, okay, this is how we're going to solve it. And you're like, this is great, but here are XYZ reasons why they're not because of the lived experiences they're having, right? Maybe the problem that we're solving is not the most important problem or you're creating more problems from them. So to Kelly's point, like collaborating as early as possible and like really treating it as a partnership, right? Like everyone is trying to solve problems and improve experiences, user experiences, patient experiences. So the earlier that you can bring your subject matter expertise and kind of, nix certain things off the list, I think, again, it like in the end, it saves time, resources, and gets solutions out the door faster.
Brain space too.
Yeah.
I think that's really a great point. One of my biggest and favorite parts is actually steady planning. I say the steady design and planning phase should actually be like the longest phase. It's not always how things work, but it's like when we have that time to plan and bring different people and ask different things, and even like groups like PM, like project management, being able to just be like, oh, so this is good. You need like an extra 6 weeks for this thing. I'm like, yes, I need to test for 2 weeks. I need to play with it, blah, blah, blah. I need them to redo that. So I think, again, if that planning can just really happen, we all just get happy.
Dividends.
And again, for a 3-year study, it's a good investment.
It's a very good investment.
All right. Well, we're closing up. The last thing we want to ask you is just what does a day in the life look like? So you are a jack of all trades, you're managing large teams, you're working on studies that are in a monitoring phase, that are starting up, that are closing out, that you have general research or inquiries about, and working all with product and engineering in between, and staying up with normalized practices and GCP guidelines. So what does a day in the life look like for you?
Like many people, no 2 days are the same. I like to log in early and like check my Slack and just kind of see what things are going on. I have people working across time zones, so just kind of like to just be like aware. But in general, I'm going to be checking on my active studies, what's going on there. Are the patients, the participants funneling through? Are there any major complaints, anything going on that we should kind of be aware of? Is the product actually working? That's a big It's a big thing. We see, failures in products are normal, but it's like, again, can we catch these bugs? What can we do with them? Do the right people know what's going on, and kind of like triaging that information between my team, myself. I am the type of leader who just likes to know a little bit of everything, but trust my team to react. But I want to be able to advocate for whatever they need. So I'm always kind of like just checking in. People are slacking me. We love Slack, telling me like kind of what's going on. Then a lot of client meetings, potential clients that are ongoing, some relationship building. Within that, I have, speaking of AI, I have AI in the background bringing me in like regulation changes around the world. Cool. Just so like articles that can kind of skim through, just be aware of what's going on, new products that are launching, different things I can just, maybe keep in mind for maybe it'll never come to fruition. Maybe in the next study I might need to use it. So I kind of have that stuff in the background that I'm kind of always looking at. And then, just checking on really my team. I value my humans, and so I really want to make sure they're okay. We work really, really hard in this industry, and probably more than we should. And so it's very hard to balance, but I think we need to balance that to make sure we are, able to bring our best to the table.
Taking care of ourselves.
Taking care, we were just talking, Kelly, I am a self-care girly. I'm a spa girly. And
you want a good spa, ask Joyce.
Let me know. I know them all. She knows them all. But, really just checking on my team, making sure things are flowing through, and then going from there.
It is important to remember that self-care and that boundaries perspective, because especially working in health, like you feel like sometimes things are do or die, but to really make sure that there is some sort of separation, and you have an infrastructure set up to like constantly be monitoring so you can have the break and the time that you need.
The priorities are really important. One of the things, working in cancer trials, oncology, I had a trial where one of the side effects was people's like skin like bubbled and kind of like started falling off.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was really awful side effect. And when I'm no longer working in like kind of terminally ill patients, so I like to think, is somebody going to die from this? Oh my God. Or are we just overreacting? Is this a real fire? Things can be very important when people are not dying, but at the same time, it's like putting things into perspective of like, is it a fire? So can we handle this tomorrow? Can we all take a deep breath and come back to this when we're all calm?
I need that on a Post-it note.
Yes.
For myself.
Is
anybody dying? Call me if they are. But
if not, if they're not,
maybe we can just talk tomorrow.
Well, Joyce, thank you so much for being here on our in-person pod. Thanks for being on Build Well.
Thank you. So fun. So lucky.